Welcome to Your College Bound Kid,
a podcast for parents, college counselors, students, and anyone who wants a weekly deep dive into the world of college admissions.
My name is Dave. I'm a parent of a daughter in college, and we live in Chicago, Illinois.
I'm Lisa, and I'm a clinical psychologist and college counselor. I have a daughter in college, a daughter in high school, and a son in middle school. After 30 years in Chicago, we recently moved to North Carolina.
My name is Mark. I'm a college coach in Atlanta and the parent of two daughters. Karis, a graduate of Davidson College, and she is the founder of the Spanish tutoring company, SpanishHelpToday.com. And Joy is a graduate of the University of Georgia, and she is getting her master's degree at North Carolina State University. Good morning, friends. I am coming to you from the great state of North Carolina, here in Huntersville, North Carolina. Huntersville is approximately 7 miles north of Charlotte. And we just had an Airbnb for a week here, celebrating both my birthday and Thanksgiving. And as our regular listeners know, I've got one daughter in Metro Charlotte and Cornelius, another in Raleigh, and we all converged. My wife Anitra, the four of us, rented a house and just celebrated. And you know, I just want to say thanks. I know it's past Thanksgiving, but you can always say thanks. Thankful to my family for being so awesome. And I'm thankful for you guys, our listening family, for all your support. This was a big year for us. A lot of great things happened. We expanded our team. Thankful to Vince and to Susan and for Julia, Kevin Newton and Linda, bringing 5 new additions into our rotation. And to all of you guys who just supported us in so many ways. So Dave and I forgot to do the big Thanksgiving thing on Thursday, partly because we recorded in advance. So it's never too late to say thanks. So I want to start out by saying thanks. I have a lot to share this episode. And so one of our regular listeners called in and said, Mark, you keep calling it announcements, but I really think you should call it higher ed updates. So that's my new term, higher ed updates. I've got quite a few higher ed updates for you guys today. But before I do, I really want to go into a little bit more depth on SpeakPipe, which we are really excited about. And it is up and running. It is operational. We have tested it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, if you missed last Monday's episode, we are using software from a company called SpeakPipe to record your actual questions. And that's a special thanks to one of our listeners, James, who gave us this idea. And it's all set up. So how do you do it? You just go to speakpipe.com/YCBK, and you can't miss it. You'll see a record button. You have 90 seconds to record. Now, here's the thing. We realized, we can use this in a lot of ways. So, of course, this is an opportunity for you to leave a question from a listener. If you do that, we ask that you keep it to under 90 seconds because you'll get cut off if you go beyond that. We'd love for you to leave your first name and your state, but we understand some people want to be anonymous. That's okay as well. If you want to be anonymous, you could still say the state you're in without mentioning your name. I'll kind of leave that up to you. But sure, this is an opportunity for you to leave a question, and we can insert your actual voice into our podcast, which we're excited about. But there's some other purposes of this as well. So one of the terms they use at KIP, which is the CBO I've been with for 14 years, they use the term when we're getting together, affirming and adjusting feedback. So sometimes in our meetings, we have to give affirming feedback and adjusting feedback. What does that mean? It means plaudits, praise, approbation. What are you doing well? And constructive criticism. What can you do better? And we want you to use that SpeakPipe for that as well. So leave a comment for us. If there's something that you think we're doing well, share it. That'll be inspirational. If there's something that we need to do better, share it. That's how we improve. So it can be your opportunity to share a comment, a thought. It could even be an article you think we should discuss or a topic you think we need to talk about, or your actual question. But check it out, everyone. It's real simple. It's just speakpipe.com /YCBK. You'll also see it on the yourcollegeboundkid.com website as well. You have to go where the 3 is. Think about a clock and think where the number 3 is. And you'll see a link right there. It's in the very, not corner, but in the middle of the page on the right side. And it's on every single page on our website. You can click a link there as well. And we'll also put speakpipe.com /YCBK in all of our show notes. I'll be mentioning this quite a few times. It's kind of like the new toy. We're pretty excited about it. I am going to make one more request. If you're somebody who has emailed a question in, and that could have been on Twitter, or it could have also been through questions@yourcollegeboundkid.com, we would love it if you would just go to speakpipe.com /YCBK and actually verbally say your question. We really want to start utilizing this feature now. Last thing I'll say, our regular listeners know I am going to be in California for about 9 days from December 3rd through 12th. So we have gotten ahead on our Thursday in the news and our question from a listener, knowing that I'm not back till mid-December and then you head into Christmas. So you can leave a question now and you'll likely hear it in January, but we are going to be prioritizing the first ones in and get them out to you sooner. So the sooner you get your question in, the sooner you'll go into the rotation. All right, that's enough at least for today about speakpipe.com /YCBK. Now let's get to some of the announcements I have because there are quite a few. All right, so as to be expected, when the blowback came back on loan forgiveness, which we discussed a few weeks ago, it was almost inevitable that the payment pause would go back into effect. What am I talking about? There's been a moratorium on federal student loan interest payments going back to the start of the pandemic in March 2020. And if you've had a federal loan, you've not had to pay interest because the president actually has the authority to put them on hold. And he has been doing that. And when student loan forgiveness was announced in August, it was said at that time that there would be no more payment pauses because at some point the federal government needs to collect money. But when it got challenged, then this was almost inevitable that it would another 6 months of pause would go into effect. And that's what's happened while they wait for the Supreme Court. Now, I'm personally not optimistic. I don't think the Supreme Court is going to support the Biden administration. They think they're going to win. I just don't. But I could be wrong, and I'd be happy to be wrong. I do think when I look at us giving tax breaks to hedge fund companies and people with private planes, I think this country has done a disservice to especially its most under-resourced students. Look at the Pell Grant. It used to cover close to 80% of the cost of college, and now it's under 30%. So I think that people that have launched out and tried to do the right thing should not have to have the type of debt that they have personally. And so that's why I support student loan forgiveness. I also support having some skin in the game. And so the idea of 10 or 20,000 is still skin in the game, but at least it makes it a little bit easier for a significant amount of Americans. But, I don't think that it's going to be upheld. And then it will be very interesting to see what happens next, because you're going to have some very irate, disillusioned people, and voters tend not to like that. So we'll see how that plays out. But I want to get head in my skis. For now, I just want to make an announcement that you will not have to continue with your student loan payments in January, as was said in August. You have a reprieve at least until June, and we'll see what happens after that. Okay, next topic. Friends, you've heard me talk about before how certain states, their board of governors, impose restrictions on the amount of in-state versus out-of-state students that public school systems can have. Not every state does this. There are states like Vermont and Delaware, South Carolina, others heavily dependent on out-of-state students. They just really would not survive without that influx of out-of-state students. But there are other states like Texas and Florida and North Carolina and Virginia and California and many others, actually, Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia now, in most instances, not all, but in most, for the premier schools. They have the opposite problem. They have the problem of so many out-of-state people wanting to come, and the state taxpayer being peeved that I'm paying my state tax dollars and I can't get in my own state schools. So the Board of Governors imposes out-of-state restrictions. And you've heard me talk about those with specific numbers on a state-by-state basis, just throughout the 400 hours of content that we have up. So what happens when a school violates that? Well, that happened with NCAT, North Carolina A&T, the largest HBCU in the country, where Anika works, in the alumni office there. So the cap that the Board of Governors has established for NCAT is 35%. They cannot exceed 35% out of state. They need to be at least 65% in state. But they did. I mean, it's really, within HBCU circles, it's a very hot school. And this last year, they went 59% in-state, 41% out-of-state. So what's the consequence? The consequence is the Board of Governors just levied a fine of over $2 million on NCAT. And they took their medicine. They apologized. They said they've learned their lesson. They've made adjustments. They'll pay the $2 million, and they'll go back to the 35-65 ratio. But I thought that would be of interest to you all. Okay, for those of you who are old timers or even middle age or even younger, you're used to the term room and board. But if you think about it, go up to someone and talk about room and board, and they'll look at you like you're crazy, because we're talking about old British terms going back centuries ago. And now a decision has been made, and you're going to start to see this moving forward on things like aid awards and other correspondence, to stop using the term room and board. And this will be a gradual layout, but you'll definitely notice it, and to replace it with food and housing. And I support that, because everybody knows what food and housing is, and that's exactly what it is food and housing. So look to start seeing the term food and housing used instead of room and board in official communication from schools. Okay, we've been talking about California schools and how they have been on a quest to have more property. We talked about UCLA's expansion, the campus that they purchased, and how they'll be able to have a whole bunch more offerings. We talked about what's in the works for Berkeley. It's also landlocked. Well, guess what? Stanford University has expanded. That's correct. They bought a Catholic school campus. This Belmont property is 46 acres. It's 15 miles from the main Palo Alto campus. And it is the campus of Notre Dame Muir University. And so decision was made by Notre Dame Muir to completely go online and move away from using its physical facility. And this is a 172-year-old Catholic institution. They said they're going to exclusively be both online and graduate school with very little in-person instruction. And then 6 months later, that was announced, by the way, in March 2021. 6 months later, September 2021, Stanford entered into the bidding wars, and they have succeeded. And so what is Stanford planning on doing with the satellite campus? Well, they're planning on having 200 units of housing and 1,350 parking spaces for students, faculty, and staff. That's right. I could use that in my big number. That's a big number, 1,350. So now this has been a plan for a while for Stanford, which is the third largest campus in the country. It's huge, but still need more parking spaces. And actually, this is not as big as what they're hoping to do. I mean, they had set an ambitious proposal to bring another 10,000 more people to the main campus while building 2.3 million square feet in a new academic space, another 2,172 in new housing units, and a 1.1 billion transit program. But after 3 years of negotiations, Stanford had to withdraw the plan in 2019 when it was very clear that Santa Clara County local officials are not going to approve the plan over concerns that the housing and the traffic were going to add more congestion. Does that sound familiar? That's what happened, of course, at Berkeley. Concerns about congestion and traffic leading to backlash from the citizens. All right, so last week we talked about the law schools that had pulled out of U.S. News and World Report's rankings. You would add a few more schools to that list: Northwestern, Michigan, and Duke, all saying, forget it, U.S. News. Your rankings are inaccurate. They distort what we're trying to do. They work literally against our ability to have the law school that we want to have because they incentivize the wrong things. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens moving forward on this. The whole key is going to be, does this carry over to a commitment to not participate in the undergraduate rankings? Because, listen, U.S. News and World Report, they're very arrogant, okay? And you can see it by their comments they've made. They're like, fine, we'll just go ahead and use other data. But as the dean of Yale has pointed out, well, 50% of the data you're using is coming directly from us. So go ahead and use it, but you won't have accurate data. And two questions I have. One, will this spill over to the undergraduate rankings? And will a number of these schools say we're not participating there either because they don't agree with so many different ways in which they evaluate schools? And then secondly, how loud will they be? Because if they're not going to be loud and pronounce that we do not participate, it needs to seep into the public consciousness to start to question these things. So those are a few things to keep up. I want to talk more about that because we spent our time last week on that topic. All right, next topic. Maybe a couple months ago, I told you the 5 largest international countries that send students to U.S. schools. And in fact, we did a big number on this. So China was way out of the lead. I mean, 317,000 students from China, like unquestionably number one. India was like 162,000, unquestionably number 2. When you got into the 3rd and 4th space, it was Korea and Canada. Well, they have been supplanted. Now the number 3 and 4 countries are Nigeria and Ghana. International applicants are up, not just applications, but matriculants are back up after being down for a few years. And it looks like a lot are coming from Africa. So stay tuned for more on that. Okay, so the bigger topic that I want to share with you today from the NCAN conference that I attended, as you guys know, I'm still reflecting on these 3 conferences I went to in September and October and bringing tidbits back to you, is, as you may have heard, there's a tremendous focus on doubling the Pell Grant. It's called Double Pell. And that's really being led by NCAN and so many other people in the access movement. Because, of course, the Pell Grant has not even come anywhere close to keeping up with the cost of college, as I referenced earlier. And the thing that I want to really mention today about that is, while that is noble and I support it 100%, it's just not going to happen. It's just not. I'm not saying it won't happen in the future, but if it's going to happen, it's going to be way, way, way out in the future. And there's a number of reasons why it's not going to happen. Even when the Democrats were in power, they proposed a $6 trillion budget, it didn't have double Pell in there because of just the astronomical costs. And there's no way in the world it was going to get through Congress. Well, now with the Democrats losing the House, keep an eye on Dr. Virginia Fox. If you follow this stuff closely, she's a North Carolina congressperson, and she's going to be spearheading new initiatives when it comes to education. And they've already released what their reforms they want to make now that there's Republican leadership in the House. And forget double Pell. I mean, that, for all the buzz there's been about double Pell over the few years. I just want to mention some of the Republican priorities because you're going to hear more of this now that they've got the microphone. So they want to get rid of public service loan forgiveness. They've never been a fan of it, and they hope to get rid of it. For those of you who don't know, there's a plan in place called public service loan forgiveness, where graduates can work for nonprofits for 10 years and have their federal debts canceled by giving back in service for a decade. Okay. Public service loan forgiveness. I personally don't think they're going to be successful. It's a very popular program, but they do want to get rid of it. They also want to get rid of Grad Plus loans. That's very controversial as well, very bold. I don't think they'll be successful, but that's one of their priorities. Now, Grad Plus loans allow graduate students to go to grad school, and almost like the Parent Plus loan, you can borrow up to the cost of attendance. So there's something called the Federal Direct Unsubsidized Loan, which grad students can borrow, but it's capped at $20,000. And if you're trying to go to expensive grad school out of state or private or professional programs like law, medicine, business, $20,000 is just not cutting it. So Grad Plus has been there, and it's allowed students to borrow up to the cost of attendance. And the Republicans want to end the program just because it is leading to a lot of student debt. The problem is, how would a lot of people be able to afford these professional programs without it? A lot of times these programs in these grad schools do not give really hardly any need or merit-based money. So unless somebody's coming in and independently wealthy, or they have strong parental support, this would drastically cut down, for example, on the number of people that would be able to go to med school, dental school. So I don't really see that happening, but that's what they're hoping to do. They also want to give financial aid offices more authority in who they're able to extend loans to. So right now, you're kind of guaranteed the federal direct subsidized loan or unsubsidized loan. And they want to give the schools the ability to do more targeted borrowing and put some caps on place. And I can see some validity to that, particularly a part-time student. Right now, a part-time student could come in part-time and take advantage of that full loan. And I can see a place for some restrictions to be put in place there. So they're also looking to have more restrictions on IDR plans, which are income-driven repayment plans. This is the ability to have your payback of your loan be synced to your income. It's one of the big things that makes federal loans really appealing and attractive, is that the actual amount you have to pay get adjusted to the income you have coming in. And so that's something that's very difficult for private loans to compete with. But they're hoping to put more restrictions on that. So those are just a couple of things that you can look for in this new Congress with the new things they're going to be emphasizing. And for all the talk about double Pell that you've been hearing for the last 5 years, if you've been following the Access movement, it's on complete life support. It's certainly on hold for quite a while. And like I said, even when Democrats were in control, they never even proposed it. They proposed some aggressive increases in the Pell Grant. You know, the Pell Grant had been going up like $150 a year, and then Biden expanded it more than anybody had before. So you're seeing like, $400, $600 type increases, but nothing close to double Pell.
And now this week's interview with a special guest.
Okay, friends, hopefully you've enjoyed my interview with Arlene Cash. It's not often you get to talk to someone with 5 decades of experience working in 11 schools, and you get to just sit back and just soak in all of her wisdom. And this is the final session. We bounce around from topic to topic. She has a lot of great insights on a number of topics. Listen and enjoy. So I'm curious how you're going to answer this one. It's a frequently asked question I get. It's basically, what's the best way to visit a college? Like, what should I do while I'm on the campus of a school during a visit to maximize the experience and get the most out of it? What would be your advice to a student or a family, that asks you that question?
I would ask the school if I can do 3 things. Number 1, of course, give me the tour of the campus with a tour guide. Tour guides are trained to talk to you about their experiences and how their experiences should be able to relate to your experience and what you want to do. They're going to show you the best aspects of the college. While you're on that actual tour, ask the tour guide questions like, who's your favorite professor? What's your favorite study spot? where do students go to have fun on campus? A lot of times they don't talk about that during the tour, but it tells you a little bit about this campus. Is the favorite study spot in the student center lounge? Is it in the library? It helps you get a sense of the whole campus and the atmosphere of the camp. Is it in their room? Who the favorite professor is important. That should be a quick answer. That should be quick. My favorite professor is Professor Long, whatever. Because if it takes a while, either the student has lots of favorite professors, or they're not thinking, I really don't have a favorite. Who can I talk about positively? So really sort of watch that body language. The tour, they're giving you information. There's also an opportunity for you to get information from the tour guide. The second thing you should ask about is, may I visit a class? Find out if there's an opportunity to actually go into a classroom, sit in the classroom, and see a professor teach. Listen to what's going on in the class. Are students asking questions? Is the professor simply lecturing, or is he engaging with his students in the classroom? And are students staying after the class? Is it a class where when the bell rings or when the time is over, everyone gets up and runs out? Or are students hanging around, going to the front of the class and talking to the professor? That's really an indicator of the real kind of interaction. Every school, I don't know one that doesn't say, every school says, we have amazing relationships with our students. We know each of our students personally. Big schools, small schools, they're all saying it. Let's see it in action. Do you see that happening at the school? And third, have lunch with a student who is not a tour guide. Ask if it's opportunity. Can I go to the cafeteria and just go sit in the cafeteria and either just listen or engage with a student who might be sitting alone or with a group. Sit next to a group of people and let them know, I'm visiting. What do you think about the school? You want the 411 from the everyday person, not the person trained to make you feel good about the experience.
Oh, that is sage advice. So we're getting ready to wind down here, Arlene. And as you know, no first-time visitor comes on the Your College Bound Kid podcast without our lightning round, where we bounce around from topic to topic, non-admissions. But before we get to that, is there anything else that you haven't shared on any topic that you'd like to share?
No, I think financial aid, we really haven't talked a lot about financial aid and funding your education.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a very, very important. We talked a little bit about the schools, how much money the school has. I think every student should, number one, consider college an investment. So recently we hear a lot of students say, I don't want to take out any loan. And I always push back by saying, this is an investment. Sure. Don't take out too much loan. Don't take out the whole tuition in loan, but think about how much you're willing to invest in your future. If this is the best school for you, maybe taking $10,000 or $15,000 a year is not such a bad idea. If you really want that kind of education, that environment, think about it as an investment. Don't be afraid of loans. It will pay itself back when you graduate. So graduate. Begin with the end in mind. Start college with the idea that I am going to graduate. Make someone help you write out that path. If you can't get someone to do that during orientation or before, you may want to rethink your college choice. School should be there to make sure that you graduate. Everyone at that institution should make sure of that. Find your person, no matter who it is. Many students find me or they find some other colleague. It doesn't matter if it's a professor or an admissions person or a vice president. Find your person. And parents, find your person. Find someone you can call at any time to say, my child seems to be distant. My child hasn't called. What's going on the campus? Find someone you can call and connect with on that campus. That's what I haven't said that I think is important. I'm not saying that as a parent also.
Sure. And it's so funny. We're simpatico because I came real close to asking you that question. How much loan debt is too much in your opinion? And you basically, indirectly kind of answer that. I did think of one more question I want to ask you before we go to the lightning round. How important is the school's name? Should that, in your opinion, their name, their reputation of the school, how much should that be factored in when people make decisions?
That's probably the hardest question that you've asked, Mark, because name is important. I think that you can't hang your hat on going to a very, very well-known school and graduating from that school. But you can hang your hat on the fact that you graduated from that school. I love the University of Arkansas Fayetteville for this reason. Before I went to work there, I had never heard of this school, honestly. I didn't know anything about the Razorbacks, the famous, Rolling with Nolan, any of those things. I had no clue whatsoever. And then when I got there, I realized that every student has their name, every graduate has their name on a brick on that campus. And that's probably the most important name that you want, your name on that school, your name in that roster, your name as a graduate. So sure, reputation is very important. You can't beat it. No, I didn't go. The example is maybe you went to Yale School of Drama. What great actor or actress do we know that wouldn't have loved to have gone there if they didn't go there? And how many did go and graduate from that school? Spelman College, you have so many female leaders coming from that school. Smith College, same thing. Princeton, Yale, they all have their certain aspects that make them very important and great. But there are also there are also a lot of schools that are much less known. And they are also great. So sure, name reputation is important. Not everyone's going to get into a big name, large reputation school. It's just not going to happen. So think about the most important name, that's yours, and making sure that it's on the roster of graduates.
It's funny. That's one of the hardest questions I'm asked too, because there's so much nuance in it, right? Like, for example, you could go to your state flagship school, and if you're going to live in that state, that name probably carries as much weight as any name in the country almost, because of the alumni network and how well known it is. Just give an example: University of Missouri. If you live in Missouri, but
Mizzou.
But if you go live in, maybe Northern California, I mean, doesn't carry as much. So there's a lot of nuance to that conversation.
Exactly right, and that's what I was saying about the University of Arkansas. If you live in Arkansas and you're a Razorback, it's everything. My mother got a graduate degree in education from an Ivy League school, not going to say the name, in Massachusetts. And, and for her, the further she went from that school, the more gravitas that school had. If you're in Massachusetts, it was like, oh, okay, you and 18,000 other people,
Sure.
But further away she went, I mean, it just became more and more and more influential and impressive. Not to say that it wasn't great that she went there. It was amazing that she went there as an older woman, going after having all of her children and all that. That was amazing. But it was just interesting watching the level of interest further away.
Yeah.
Because of the simply because of the name.
Yeah, and of course that's a unique name that has a unique place in the college landscape.
Right.
But it does show how nuanced this is. Like, I was talking about you stay local and everybody's heard of you, but if you're Harvard, they know you all around the world, right? So
that's right.
So it's not quite that simple. So lightning round. So what is your favorite place to go for a vacation?
Jamaica.
Oh, how many times have you been there?
5.
Wow, good for you. You were ready for me on that one.
Easy.
What is a place on your bucket list that you've never been but you really want to get there?
Japan.
Oh, and why? Why Japan?
I hear they have amazing customer service, amazing food, and they are just I've heard they are the most hospitable country in the world.
Gee, making me want to get there. I like those skills.
Right.
That's impressive.
I'm interested in seeing if it's true.
Yeah, that's good stuff. That is really, really good stuff. What is your favorite sport?
Lacrosse.
Wow, I didn't see that. Was that because your boys played?
That's because I played.
I didn't know that.
In high school, I played. It's the only sport I ever played competitively.
Wow.
And so, as a Bostonian, how do you choose between basketball, baseball, football, hockey? How do you choose? They're all great, right?
Just go to lacrosse.
Exactly. So you go with what you know.
That is great. All right. So a very generous person comes into your life and they say, Arlene, you've given yourself to serving kids through education for decades, and I want to buy you any car you want on any lot. What is Arlene going to get?
I'm going to have to get the new Volvo. I think there's a new electric Volvo that's come out, so I'm going to have to go with that one.
And what is it about the Volvo that's got?
Number one, it's the safest car out there. I have a new grandson. He's 7 months old. Okay, so I want something that his parents will allow me to put them in. So the Volvo is a safe car. It's also efficient in the electric aspect, makes it a gas efficient. I don't have a car. I just feel right now, only because I feel as though we just all have to do our part in making sure that we, our footprint, has to be as minimal as possible. So that's my small sacrifice.
Wow, that's a big sacrifice you make.
Really, tell me about it. But I'm sticking to it.
There you go. There you go. That's really good. What is one of Arlene's pet peeves?
I'm gonna say people who whine about service. So people who, when you go to a restaurant and they don't get served fast enough, or the food is not done perfectly, I just feel as though the people who serve us, people who are helping us, we just have to give them a break. I mean, it just aggravates me so much when people are whining about service. Service is service. Someone's doing something for you. Let's go with that. How about that?
One of my friends, we've kind of lost communication, but I used to be so embarrassed because we would go to restaurants. This is, when I was at Michigan State, and he'd get a steak and invariably, wait, stop the wait, and then he'd check it, he'd cut it, and then he'd say, take it back.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm only going to crawl under the table.
Right.
I can understand where you're coming from. You're coming from with that one. So who is a famous person? This is a two-part question. A famous person alive and a famous person deceased that if you could have a couple hours with them, you would pick that person.
Oh my goodness. Right away, deceased is Nelson Mandela. What a wonderful soul. When you think about the soul of a person, and what it took for him to survive and to move through and then survive, continue to lead, and then, end his life as a leader with kindness in his heart, the way it was, such a forgiving person. I just couldn't think of anyone better. And alive, I don't know, man. I'm gonna go with my gut here and say Beyonce.
Yeah, look at you keeping your youth. That's an answer my 23-year-old daughter would give. Good for you.
So here's why Beyonce. I just want to say, so what's it like to not ever make your bed? I just want to know, what is it like to be, my kids, I'm always telling my kids, I wonder what Beyonce would be doing with this or whatever.
Right.
I'm just always curious, what is it like to live that life? So I think she's a great mom also, and I would love to hear about her parenting style.
Apparently her concerts are incredible. My daughter went to her concert when she came to Atlanta, and she's still talking about it. So
I've never been to one of her concerts, and I'm not sure. I think her concert is a little bit over the top for me personally.
Right.
But then I've been to George Clinton concerts, so after that, whatever. So.
Who's your favorite musician?
Cole Porter.
Really?
Yeah.
Good for you. Awesome. Awesome.
Yes, I'm a big jazz enthusiast.
I can tell. So, a book you've read that you think everybody they just need to read this book. It just, it will impact you if you read it.
I just sent the autobiography of Malcolm X to my 3 most recent supervisors. All of them white, and I feel as though it was really important for them to get a sense of, through Malcolm X's journey,
right,
to get a sense of the journey of the people of African Americans in America. I think his autobiography really reflects that. I think it's well written. I think it was done well in that way. But I think the story is one that is sustainable and relevant even today.
When I was in high school, 2 of the books that really impacted me were that book right there. And then, I don't know if you remember this book, it was called Black Like Me.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a white guy who painted himself black, and he went into maybe Mississippi or, just experience the discrimination and see that, those 2 books really, really shaped me in 9th, 10th grade, those kind of years. Yeah.
We might have gone to the same high school. I had the exact same experience with those 2 books.
Wow.
Another book was Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart.
Yeah, that's a
When I was
classic.
in Upward Bound, I was asked to read that, and I thought, why would I want to read a book by an African guy? And it's a book that I keep, and have encouraged all my kids to read. Yeah,
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, let's close with this, Arlene.
sure.
Your it's a three-folder though.
Oh,
Your best advice to three groups: college counselors, students, parents. About 1/10 of our listeners are college counselors. So that's why I said that.
sure. My advice to college counselors is to remember that the students that we're working with are so vulnerable. And what you say is really going to make a difference. Not just what you say, but how you say it. Encourage their dreams. So this advice is probably has three parts. So understand that they're easily hurt, easily hurt at this point in their life, and they have dreams which they may only share with you. So encourage them, and then keep them grounded in the most important thing, in that what they do with their college career really depends on them more than anything else. But this aspect of don't discourage their dreams. I've worked with so many counselors that will say something like, well, her background in math, she's never been good with math, so she shouldn't be a doctor. And the student wants to be a doctor. So I try to tell the counselor, this is not about she shouldn't be a doctor. It's about what school is going to best support her in becoming a doctor. What kind of timeline will she need to become a doctor? Not don't become a doctor. So that's one. To parents is to be good listeners and good drivers. Make sure you take the kid where they want to go to college. And if you have a school that you really want your child to go to, save it for last. If it's not already on the list, just save it for last and let that be your one thing. After I've driven you everywhere, after I've gone to make copies of your essays and helps you with all these things, do me a favor and just apply. I'll pay for the application fee. Have one school, save it for last if it's not on the list already, and then if they don't choose to go there, it's fine. But don't push your ambition and your college hopes and dreams onto your child. They probably have their own. And go with that. And for students, it's believe in yourself. Choose your friends carefully when you go to college. Make sure you choose your friends carefully. And I'll give students the advice I give my kids. Don't die. Don't get lost. Don't die. Don't get lost. And don't get stolen. Okay? Don't let anybody kill your dreams. And don't let anybody take away who you are. Don't get lost in the school's busyness. Always keep your North Star. Remember where you came from. And don't let anybody steal your dreams.
Arlene, this has been unbelievable. And I really appreciate you. I was just remember when I had that Game Changer video series and you recorded something for that back,
Oh my gosh, Mark, how do you remember these things?
I'm just having flashbacks of just the different times when I've had the privilege of being able to spend some time with you. And it's been exciting for me to watch and see how many lives you've impacted and how centered you have stayed to your core. And I also want to say hi to you for Susan, because she would have loved to have joined me on this. She just holds you in such high regard and always speaks so highly of you. She's on our podcast now. She's one of our co-hosts.
You tell Susan I said hello, and I would love to change numbers later so I can give her a call. I would love to.
I will do that. I'll make sure you do that. Awesome.
It's been an honor, Mark. Thanks so much for allowing me to be on here. If there's ever an occasion to come back, call me anytime. Really love what you're doing. I love what you're doing for higher education, for the students and the counselors. You're making a big impact, so I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
Friends, on Thursday's episode, Susan and I will be discussing a policy paper proposal by Education Reform Now, looking at early decision and what changes, if any, they're recommending. Susan and I had such a great, robust hour and 4-minute conversation there that I found I couldn't edit it. I couldn't get rid of 20 minutes. So we're going to run it over the next 2 weeks. So you'll be hearing that in our In the News segment, both in 249 and in 251. And our question from a listener sent in a question wanting to know about Reach for All schools and how can I know if a school is a Reach for All school, and some other questions as well about Reach for All schools. So we'll be discussing that in our question from a listener segment. And College Spotlight is back. George Washington University, as promised. Dave and I will be talking about that. And finally, our interview. It is with Miljan Trulove. And we're switching from why did Reed refuse to participate with the rankings to understanding Reed College. So the next couple of weeks, we'll be talking about Reed College with Miljan Trulove. I was talking to one of our associates and I said, are you enjoying the Miljan Trulove interview? And they said, absolutely. With a name like Miljan Trulove, how can I not enjoy it? So yeah, hopefully you guys are enjoying Miljan. He's a great guy. Okay, friends, in this Thanksgiving season, hopefully you're taking your cues from what the University of Pennsylvania is doing in their question segment this year and finding a couple people that you can actually thank for their impact in your life. So that's all I want to do in the end of this session today is just remind everybody to be sure to thank the people that have had an impact or influence in you for this year. All right, see you on Thursday, everybody. And that's our show. A big thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning in this week. If you find this podcast helpful, please follow us and you'll get every single episode as soon as it is released. If you're interested, there are a few ways you can really support our podcast. You can click the share button and send it to your friends and acquaintances. You can help us pay our staff and our expenses by donating on our website. You can write a review for us on Apple or Spotify. I'm the producer of the podcast, but we have a fantastic team of 14. Shout out to our co-host, Dr. Lisa Ruff, Dr. David Williams, Susan Tree, Vince Garcia, and Julia Esquivel, and to our substitute co-host, Sylvia Borgo. Our sensational sound engineer is Nemanja Motvich. Our amazing music is from Victor Allen Weeks. Marketing designs are from Kimberly Blass. Lily Parikh manages our Instagram. Our image editor is Talha Khan. Joy Stucker does our website episode updates. And our webmaster is Stalianos Dimitriou. If you want to have a coaching session with Lisa or me, just text me at 404-664-4340. If you have a question you want us to answer, or if you have a recommended resource or article you think we should discuss, just send it to questions@yourcollegeboundkid.com. By the way, check out our website, where you'll find lots of content that is not on any podcast app. Our website is yourcollegeboundkid.com. If you want to learn about other hot admissions topics, follow us on Twitter at YCBK Podcast. We think of you as our listening family, and we look forward to meeting again with you every single Thursday.